We have created a new program this year for what we call large area developers. It's an incentive program. We call it the 50/50. And it is a program where if they meet or beat their opening schedule, we reduce their IFF, franchise fee. And for every week, regardless of how many weeks, it could be 3 years, the royalty is 50% during that time. It's some massive savings.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today, I'm going to kind of fangirl a little bit today. We're going to discuss, got a franchise coming in to talk about their brand. It is a massive food franchise that quite honestly is the absolute favorite place for my son and I to go. We're going to spend a lot of time on this show over the 250 or so episodes. We talk about franchising is not just food, but guess what? There's some amazing food options out there. This one has a long track record of growth, a great products, plural, an incredibly loyal following, including me. Really, I'm just kind of getting hungry thinking about it. So let's get to it. Quick reminder of who we are. FranCoach is the premier franchise consulting firm. Our number one goal is not selling anything. We shouldn't be selling in franchising. Our number one goal is to properly educate people on franchise ownership so you can determine first, is this the thing for you? If so, we're going to help you figure out what is your absolute best fit. Not anybody else's, not what somebody else thinks it might be or draws up some numbers on a chalkboard. What is your absolute best fit? This is the most individualized, personalized process you're going to find out there. Our team at FranCoach is going to help you. And one of the ways we're going to do that is share some things about some of the franchises. So excited for this one. Hey, we're back here on the Franchising 101 podcast, and joining us today is the Senior Vice President for Franchising for, and this is maybe my own personal preference, but the best sandwich franchise in the whole world, Potbelly Sandwich. So Lynette McKee is joining us. Lynette, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for, really appreciate you having this opportunity. And no, I didn't pay you to say that.
No, but if you want to throw a free coupon my way, I got a 12-year-old down the hall. It's like, Dad, can we go to Potbelly's?
We'll get you some.
But no, thank you for joining us. And we, and I know you're probably a big listener of the Franchising 101 podcast, and you've listened to all 250 episodes, along with our other seven followers. But we talk a lot in franchising. There's this myth that, everything is food. Well, there's so many other things out there. Every now and then I like to kind of remind folks about the great food franchises. So Excited to talk about Potbelly, but this is a people business. I love hearing stories. So give us the Lynette scoop. How did you get into this crazy world of franchising?
Well, it was over 30 years ago. And I had mentioned to you earlier when we were just chatting a little bit, I actually was a second grade school teacher. And somehow or other, I wound up in the real estate business and had a commercial real estate firm. Did work for a company called TW Services, which was back then the owner of Denny's and several other brands.
Yep.
And during that time, did some work for their sister division of Hardee's Food System. And they asked me to move to California and move their Denny's franchise division from Irvine, California to Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'd never seen a legal document pertaining to franchising. If you've ever said, take your heels and stick you in head first, that's what happened. And from there, it progressed over the years. So that was back in the day of the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular. And they laid it on my desk the first day and said, read this. And I thought, what have I gotten myself into?
Yes. You're like, what in the world is this?
Yeah.
But 30 years ago when you started, you were also only 4. So, I mean, your reading skills probably weren't there. But but second grade teaching, and Were there any, this may sound crazy, any correlations from second graders and working now in franchising?
You have absolutely no idea how aligned it is. Two things. And I was at Dunkin' once upon a time, and my staff there one day said, "You treat me like your second graders." And I said, "Well, sometimes you act like my second graders." But
yes,
the planning part of it, to me, is probably the key, because with all those little kids running around, you've got an account for every minute of the day. You got to be very prepared. You've got to know in advance everything that you're going to be working on, and you have to lead a team. And whether it's 7-year-olds or 30 to 55 plus year olds, it's a lot of the same thing. I still use the same planning book that I did back in the day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which people laugh at me for. But to me, that, and also keeping your message simple, so that it's not that you're trying to lower it down from an education standpoint. It's just keep things simple so that it's easy for everybody and quick, and you can move faster that way. So, yeah, there's more correlations than you could ever imagine.
Well, and I hate misquoting really, really smart, famous people, but I think it's Einstein. It's something to the effect of, if you can't explain it so an 8-year-old can understand it, you're not explaining, you don't know it well enough, right? Something to that effect.
Yes.
And that's just what you're talking about. You've got to keep it simple, dumb it down. And I love your comment about the planner. My background my first career was teaching and coaching, and I was an athlete before that. And that game plan, right? Mm-hmm. And it, every little thing that you're doing. And I had those all in binders for years and years, right? Of just one over the other. So, and that is franchising, follow the plan.
It is. I told my team at Dunkin' one time, and it was the franchise sales team, and I said, we're going to keep it really simple from a criterion, standpoint of understanding your role. Don't do anything that has the ops team wake up in the middle of the night and call you names.
Yes, exactly. I guess they're in a cold sweat screaming your name out, right? So that's not what you want.
Bring in good people, and you're causing them a lot of headache. And so that was sort of our mission statement of keep it very simple, bring in good people, and make sure that you're turning over the right kind of franchisees to move into the system.
Love it. I love it. So on the slim chance there's somebody out there listening that has not heard of Potbelly, hasn't been there, isn't planning lunch there today, shame on them. What the heck is Potbelly?
Yeah. So we call ourselves a fast casual sandwich restaurant, not a sandwich shop, because we have a much more diverse menu than you would find in a typical sandwich shop. We are a 48-year-old brand. We have over 440 locations. We will open approximately about 38 shops this year, and on a trajectory every single year to open more. In addition to hot sandwiches that go through a 500-degree oven, we have great salads. We have mac and cheese, chili, the best milkshakes you will ever taste in your life. And right now, my favorite is the banana pudding milkshake. Cookies that are to die for. We have now a key lime cookie. My most favorite, though, is the red velvet cookie that usually comes out around Valentine. And, it's the whole brand. It's just when we travel, it doesn't matter where in the country, people walk up to you and say, "I love Potbelly," and they can tell me which sandwich they like because they have names.
Yes.
And so I know that they're not kidding.
Original rec on the multigrain. No mustard, no onion, everything else. Yep. And don't skip the hot peppers. So,
and the hot peppers are the key. Everybody loves the hot peppers.
We
send out hot peppers to people in our recruiting trail.
I have in the past, I used to live really close to one, and I bought the jar. You can actually buy as you know, but the people, you can actually buy their hot peppers, and they are fantastic. The little cookies that go with the milkshake. I would buy just boxes of those if that was possible.
They're better than the Girl Scout cookies.
Yes, they are. But fantastic food, and you're right. A much bigger menu. Also, usually a little bit bigger footprint than that. Talk a little bit about kind of that location.
Yeah. Most of we have a real flexible footprint, but mostly inline, some end cap. On occasion, we do have a franchisee that will open one that is maybe not a ground up, but a conversion with a drive-through. Right now, our sweet spot is kind of that 1,800 square feet. We reduced the size of the footprint about 400 from 23, 22 to the 18 because, a lot of people are takeout, order in, order out. And it just made a lot of sense. Plus, from a cost perspective for development and for our franchisees, could take a lot of cost out of the building. So right now we're around 1,800 square feet.
Gotcha. And I know that you mentioned some have that drive-through component, not a requirement, but can be a nice add-on when possible, right?
Yeah, it's honestly very few, but there are some circumstances that just make sense for the franchisee to have that drive-through. And, the thing about us from a QSR perspective, we can just sort of fit into almost any situation. And that makes it easier for our franchisees to locate real estate and meet any opening obligations they have.
Yeah, I think I'm jaded on the drive-through. One of them that I used to live by had the drive-through. Yeah. But now that I think about it, I don't know that I've seen that very often anywhere else.
Not too much.
So an owner coming into this, I want to kind of get a profile of them. And first and foremost, do they need to have tons of experience in food service and sandwich making? What's kind of from there? And then what are some of the things that you're looking for?
Yeah. So we call it, just as a kind of a fun way to do it, we call it the three-legged stool. So we're looking from a financial standpoint, how much that they need to have, from inside the four walls, the operations, and then what we call the business of running the business. So we only do multi-unit development with franchisees. And so we want people to have those three areas to be able to become a franchisee. Now, if they come to the table and they've got business experience of some type, they don't have food service, but they do have a strong financial statement, then depending on the size of their network, we may require them to have like a district manager employee, or we may ask them to bring someone on in an equity position. So some of the larger transactions, it just makes more sense to have someone overseeing the operations that has a little bit of stake in the game. But the way we look at it and explain it to people is the three-legged stool, because they can visualize it, and it helps them understand the different parts that we're looking for to make sure it's a complete franchise organization.
Right. And none of the three legs was stand behind the counter and make sandwiches all day long. No. Right.
No.
For them. I'm sure they're learning how to, but that's not what an owner does, right?
Yeah. We will offer owner training for what we call a mini session, MINI session, of about 4 days, and then their operator will come for the full training. A lot of times we will have franchisees that are in other brands or other businesses, and so they don't have the scheduling to be able to be there for the full training. But we want them to understand. I had a franchisee years ago with another brand that had an operating partner. Now, this was an equity partner, and he called me about 2 years in, and he said, I'm in a real pickle. And he said the franchisee or the ops person was skimming the books. And he had not taken the time to go to the owner training so that they could understand exactly how the business was run, how the P&L was managed. And so when he was looking at that, he was looking at it from the outside in and didn't understand that he should have caught these things. Right. And, so, I scolded him a little bit because
right, he should have been there.
He should have done that. And I said, you wouldn't be in this pickle right now. But we do ask the franchise owners to do that. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's for their protection too, to make sure that the people that are in those shops every day, they know when they walk in what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care how many different things you have going on, or different businesses or brands or whatever. This is still your baby. Like,
that's right.
You need to understand all of those things from that standpoint. And you talk about multi-unit, so owners are probably, I'm guessing, a little bit more hands-on in that first one, but then as they grow, that's now getting really kind of elevating themselves up, and managers and maybe even district managers, that is their focus much more than that person making the sandwich every day, right?
Yeah. And it will depend. We have franchisees now that, they may be under their development agreement, 5, 6, 7, 10 plus shop commitments. And that's the case. They may be in those shops some. Now, we have some young franchisees that are going to be in there every day because they want to learn and they have an operating partner. But we just want to make sure that the business is run well regardless. And, we can vet through the interview process sort of where the gaps are with the candidates and make sure that we're offering them the right path to be sure that, because, you don't want them to sign up to build 7 shops and then they build the first one and something goes wrong. You want to make sure that you're giving them right guidance for that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this too. So I think if people are sitting there thinking of multi-units and multiple locations, so let's say we go through this and I'm going to be a 5-unit operator. I don't open all 5 at once. Kind of there's a, like, even if I could financially, you guys would probably smack me around. I'm like, what are you thinking? Right. Like, talk about kind of those timelines and how that typically works.
Yeah. We usually look for 1 a year. Now, the first one, just because you're getting yourself acclimated to the brand, we may give you a little bit more time. But we also find is that if you have the capability of being a little more aggressive and start getting that second and third in the pipeline, particularly in markets that maybe the brand hasn't had as much of a presence, then it's an added plus. But we gauge each franchisee and their ability to do that. From a financial standpoint, you don't want to put somebody in harm's way if maybe they're doing an SBA loan instead of conventional, and the loan document will not allow you to go into number 2 or 3. So each one we look at on a case by case basis, but we don't try to force someone to open more than their schedule, and you've got to be realistic about that as well. Sometimes, real estate in a market may be hard to find. And so you've got all these, exterior things that are going on as well. So we try to work with everybody and make sure we're putting them in a good path.
Right. And the flip side, sometimes there's real estate, all of a sudden something like a really good opportunity may come open and available, and you want to be able to jump on it. But you got to get that first one really up and running and kind of work. I don't care how great the training is. You got to kind of experience there's going to be some things that go wrong and understand that.
Yeah. And it's good to do a postmortem too of just the opening to say, gosh, on my second one, what are the things I learned that I can avoid next time that maybe it had never happened to one of our franchisees before, but this one did. And they're like, okay, I know better,
That's the second grade teacher in you. Okay, well, this was the first day of school. This was my plan. Nope, that didn't work. Right?
That didn't work.
Remember that for next year. So what? I think I can always like trying to combat some misconceptions in franchising. So we have I'm going to use Tampa as a market, right? And so not that I have any familiarity with that area, but the thought of having multiple in there, every now and then people may think, even if I own them all, isn't this store pulling from that store? But they're missing the advantages of kind of that economies of scale things. So talk about how you see those advantages of, could you talk about maybe there's not as much of a presence. How does that presence help the growth of all of the stores?
It's really about brand awareness too. And when you go into a new market, and I can tell a quick story, but I won't tell the brand name. That wouldn't be fair to them. But at one point I had a consulting company, and I sat down it was a QSR brand, and they said we were going into a particular state, and this franchisee opened one location and they failed. And I said, what did you do to prepare the market? And they just sat there and stared at me. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you put a brand new franchisee into a brand new market, and you didn't prepare the market to tell the market who you were, so that franchisee was not on an island by themselves trying to market. And they're like, oh. So, you don't think it's rocket science, but at times a franchisor will do something like that. And so, for instance, here in Orlando, in Florida was a brand new market for us. We have a franchisee who will develop 12 in a portion of Orlando. The first one is open, 2 more are under development. And the first one, the grand opening, was something you have never seen before. She is just an incredible marketer anyway. But by the time she got the shop open, everybody knew that shop was there, even though it was not on the main street. It was in what I call a power center. And their sales have skyrocketed ever since. So, it's really important to just to make sure that the consumer is aware of who you are. And you can't, unfortunately, franchisees are usually, except for her, franchisees are terrible marketers. That's just, they operate shops.
Right.
Marketing is not their thing. And so the guidance of that, which our marketing team is just absolutely exceptional at, in giving the ideas and the support to be able to do that. But it is really important to build out a market. So in Tampa, we have one franchisee. They now have, and I'd have to count on my fingers, 6 or 7 shops. They'll have around 14 or 15 when they're finished. Or at least with this agreement, I'm sure they'll go in and, plug in to markets that weren't mapped the first time.
Right.
But as they grow, the value to them, to us, we're a public company, the value to our stakeholders, our investors, it just blooms for everybody. And so to us, that makes a big deal. Now, in Florida, we now have either open or committed. Well, I'm going to change that, because after this week, there should be 86.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say 80, but there'll be 86. And we're beginning to get, a good recognition here.
Yeah.
Which is just going to bring value to everybody.
Yeah. It's that, because I'm sure you guys are like most franchises. There's wherever the location, there's a little bit of like kind of protected territory, right? You're not going to put them. There might be a sandwich brand that has got a bad rap for putting them right next to each other at times, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not you guys with this. But we don't, as human beings, live in that whatever 2 or 3 mile bubble. We leave the bubble. We go out in different parts of even the city, and if it's like, oh, this is my favorite lunch spot, and now I'm over on this side of town. Ooh, and again, I am another one. I am your consumer with this, of like, we drive into, my son and I, we live in the middle of nowhere in Arizona. When we drive into Phoenix, I know where the one is in Santan. I know where the one is by ASU. I know the one where in North Scottsdale. Right. I know where 2 of them are in Tucson, if we go that direction. I mean, we go out of our way to be able to do that. And to the point where, gosh, where were we? My wife and I were somewhere. Oh, we were in Chicago not too long ago, which I know that's if not the origin of Potbelly, right? Pretty close, because they're everywhere there. Mm-hmm. But we were just walking down. It was right on Michigan Avenue, and it was like, she's like, "Hey, there's your place." And I'm like, "Oh." So, she's like, "I think you like Potbelly more than me." I'm like, "No, but no, I don't think so." No is the correct answer there, right? So
that was probably a really good.
Right. I should have been a little quicker on that, now that I think about it. So as I slept that night on the floor in the hotel, but that's the thing that you're talking about, is that recognition from there to again create that brand loyalty. The first one in the market is really hard. So that's not an easy place to be in. But you guys talk about some of the things you guys are doing from a support standpoint on that marketing. You're 47-year-old brand with almost 500 of these around the country. So most people have heard of it, but maybe not everybody. How do you help those owners from a marketing standpoint?
Well, we have a really outstanding, number one, an app. So all of our customers have the ability, and
Let me put it on here for you.
You know what I'm talking about. So that is something that we advertise through. We also have some really, really good social media campaigns. In today's world, the consumer, it's not really like it used to be. You've got to hit them where they are and what they're paying attention to. And so we have just an unbelievable chief marketing officer that and his team identify the ways to get in front of the consumer base.
Right.
And of course, the app is one way, and the digital. And then we do have some commercials and things that we run. But we also look at it from a standpoint of every franchisee and in their market, how do we hit the consumer within their radius? Mm-hmm. So it's not just about, we're going to put all of our money in Chicago. I know back in the day, wherever your biggest markets were, that's where all the money went.
Right.
And now we have the capability with the technology to be able to, cover that platform for the franchisee, no matter what market they're in. And that's a huge, huge difference. And we see just amazing increases in numbers all the time of consumers and reactions to what we're doing. But this is one of the best marketing teams I've been around.
And I always want to kind of say, the franchisor, it's not their job to make every customer walk in your door or pick up the phone and call you. The brand is part of the reason why you become a franchise owner.
Yeah.
But what are some things that the owners can do, and maybe even their managers and their team? What are some things owners can do in local markets to also really kind of get traffic through the business?
Probably the biggest percentage of increase they can do is have someone on their team that goes out to the local community and the local businesses and work on catering.
Yeah.
We have a really, really good catering program. And those shops that, even we have a franchisee that's down in Mississippi, and he's one of our leading franchisees in the catering business, because they literally are out knocking on doors all the time and, offering product for whatever kind of meetings they are.
Right.
And to me, that's probably one of the fastest ways to grow your business. And sometimes franchisees say, well, I don't want to add another person on staff. And you might have somebody that can do this, a part-time type, opportunity. But to me, that's the best way to do it. But, they'll sponsor Little League teams and, things that you would generally see in your community, just to make sure that people know you're out there. And to me, that is a really strong way to be a part of the community, to drive your business. You can't expect the consumer, because there's so much noise out there. You think about how many restaurants and how many opportunities, and you've almost got to be tied at the hip.
Yeah.
In some different ways to be able to do that. And, we have, kids and grandkids that have been a part of sports for many years, and we generally support the brands that support the kids.
Yes. It is. I think it's a way sometimes even for owners, regardless of what industry their franchise is in.
Yeah.
Maybe if they have that passion, if it's kids, it's sports, it's pets, it's whatever, your business now has an opportunity to do something good in the community. And how can that be bad? When it's also going to come back, because it's just one more time. It could be the car line at school, one of the most dreaded places on the planet, the drop-off line, right? And there's a sign. I'm glad you brought up the catering, because I think it's honestly a piece of food-related businesses that kind of gets overlooked a little bit, right? Because it's a big ticket, even if you're doing hey, can you cater this lunch for 20 people at our, at our business today? Great. That's certainly a bigger ticket than me walking in by myself. But there may be 15 people in that lunch that didn't know where you existed or where you were. And all of a sudden now you just got in front of those customers. So I love that you guys talk about that, because I think that's a huge component of this. So
I had a client back, 3 or 4 years ago, non-food. They called me because they knew I was at Potbelly last summer. And they said, we're having our annual picnic. Can you cater 400 sandwiches?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I called the local Potbelly and I said, I'm pretty sure you have a catering manager, so can I turn you over to, and it was, they were thrilled. The event was thrilled. And the way we have packaging for catering is really nice too, so that it's, the food doesn't arrive in it's already turned cold or it's slushy or whatever. So the teams have done a really, really nice job of the packaging, which is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest part of a business like this is real estate. And most people, maybe at some point they had an apartment and they signed a lease for the apartment, but signing a lease for commercial real estate is like a whole nother planet. And so you've been in retail forever. I don't have to tell you, it's probably the biggest mistake somebody can make. So give us a scoop on the support mechanisms that you have to kind of help people in that site selection and everything from real estate.
So we're probably more hands-on than sometimes people will want us to be, but we start out with a really solid market planning program. Our market planner, I would put him up against anybody in the industry. He can tell you any cross street anywhere in the country, and I think he's already been there. But what we do is he has mapped the entire country, so we know where our consumer base is, and that helps us to work, first of all, with our candidates and franchisees. And by the way, about 70% of our existing franchisees are growing, which I don't know that any brand can tout that. Yeah. But that's a huge win for us. And that goes back into all the services and things that our brand is offering. But we start with that. And then when the franchisee has signed, they know where their trade areas are going to be. And then we have a real estate team that literally is in market with them. They will ride the markets. We also have broker networks. We have master brokers that have connections all across the country. So now if a franchisee came to the table and they've been in the business for a long time, they already have a broker, that's fine. Right. But we don't want to leave anything to chance. So we want brokers that understand our brand, understand how to find good real estate. We do some assistance too with, we'll review leases. We want to make sure that the lease terminology is correct. And then once that lease has been, like a letter of intent has been issued, then we actually have a real estate committee. We review it. We dig down into it really deep, make sure we understand everything about it. And once they've signed that lease, then they are turned over to opposite construction, the marketing team, training team, and there is a full, a project manager that manages the franchisee all the way through the system. So there honestly is not anything left to chance. We have an in-house architectural team run by a lady that is just, exceptional, and she knows the brand inside and out. And she's not a drill sergeant, but she'll tell you the franchisees, exactly.
Right. It's her job to be but it's her job to be that way, right?
Exactly. So, and, they appreciate that because they know what they're getting. They know what to expect.
You go back to when we were talking about that owner and connecting in the community. Owners are, and hopefully I'm not ratting out a handful of owners that I've been in their stores, but they're able to have a little local kind of flair inside as well, correct?
Oh, yeah. If you walk in the Orlando shop, you will see jerseys of the Orlando Magic. You will see all kinds of things that we want it to feel like a neighborhood shop. Yeah. And we have a shop and a warehouse in Chicago that will custom design pieces for each one of the shops. We have a Potbelly in each shop, which they have located across the country and refurbished. But when you walk into each shop, you will see things related to that particular area.
Yeah.
It just gives you more of a warm and fuzzy that it's just not some brand that came in from somewhere and opened a
Right.
shop, but
Yep.
it's actually a neighborhood shop.
Yes. And that's, I asked that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not ratting anybody out because I'm thinking every one I've ever been in,
Yep.
I'm not kidding. There's probably 15 different locations around the country I've been in. Yep. There's always a little bit of that local flair, and it does. Yes. It feels like because it is a big national brand, but they are locally owned and operated, and so it's cool that you guys give the owners the opportunity to do that. Yeah. So, I'm going to throw one last thing at you, and I greatly appreciate all of the time you spent with us. This is a tricky question, Lynette. So what's maybe one thing about Potbelly that we have not talked about that you'd really want to make sure people knew?
We have created a new program this year for what we call large area developers. It's an incentive program. We call it the 50/50. And it is a program where if they meet or beat their opening schedule, we reduce their IFF franchise fee. And for every week, regardless of how many weeks, it could be 3 years, the royalty is 50% during that time.
Oh, wow.
So what we have looked at is that we want to make sure that this has value for the franchisee. And if you put a pencil to that, and there's a minimum of 15 shops over 8 years, but if you put a pencil to it and say they open all shops in 5 or 6 years versus 8, then you can look at all the franchise fees at 50%, and then you can calculate all those weeks of royalty at 50%. It's a massive savings. The way we look at it is we would not have had those shops other than at the opening schedule without this. So it's a win-win for everybody, but it really is a win for the franchisees because they have some massive savings. They can put it, back into development. They can put it into marketing. Hopefully they don't buy, a cruise ship, but they do have the savings in that regard. Correct. And what we've seen so far, we have had existing franchisees come back that were not at 15 and added enough to get to 15 to be a part of the program. And then we've had some new candidates come in, and some that we're getting ready, hopefully, to sign in the next few days. So it really has been a great program right now. It runs through the year. I'm going to put a bug in certain people's ears to try to get it, to run through next year as far as being able to offer it. But it runs through the entire life of what we call the shop development agreement.
Wow. That is, I don't know that I've heard anything like even remotely like that.
I haven't seen anything like it. There have been some different things out there where you open a couple of shops and your fee is different. But this is a much different program, and so far it's gathered a lot of attention.
I would think so. Like the franchise fee, a little whatever, but the royalties that's huge, and that's what I'm glad you explained from the other side, because my thought is like, how's this benefit the franchisor, because franchisors make money off the royalties, but it's they're going to still get more faster because their owners are more aggressive on getting that. We
wouldn't have had the percentage they're paying if we didn't help them be more aggressive. So, gotcha. But then, that puts an onerous on our real estate team and everybody else to make sure these franchisees are opening well, opening fast. And we're prepared to do that. That's something that from a senior leadership perspective, like I said, we don't leave anything to chance. Everything is discussed and all the T's are crossed.
I love it. Lynette, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
This was great. I just had a blast. So thank you.
No, thank you. Oh, and my parent rules, I think, would make me say, Lynette, can you have one of your owners open one in Thatcher, Arizona? That would be, I've done my duty. I can tell my 12-year-old son that I did that. So I know you're going to have owners clamoring to be in the middle of flipping nowhere, Arizona, but Do us a favor.
But we can get you some free sandwich cards.
Well, we'll settle for that too, I guess. But no,
Okay.
I can't thank you enough. So Lynette McKee, Senior Vice President of Franchising for the best sandwich place on the planet, Potbelly. Lynette, thanks for joining us. Thanks
a lot. Had a great time.
Thanks to all of our loyal listeners for tuning in. And again, thanks to Lynette McKee from Potbelly. Just excited about this brand. And again, I'm a pretty darn like fangirl consumer of it as well. We hope all of these episodes, whether I go fangirl or not, help provide some insight into the amazing possibilities that can be achieved with franchise ownership. And again, remind everybody how individualized and personalized this is. Just because I love eating there doesn't mean I should own it, right? Or vice versa. You got to make sure you're talking to the right people that are going to educate you, understand you, and then be able to help you find your match. Be sure to, if you haven't, subscribe to all the different places where you're getting our podcast, social media. Check out our new and improving YouTube channel as well. Our Franchising 360 show episodes are all there, as well as a ton of other content rather. And then if you are ready to chat and learn a little bit more to see if this is a path for you, FranCoach.net is where you're going to get me and all of our team. There is never, ever any fee for our service. So reach out to us, take that first step, and let us help you create your better tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.